Yeah, I'm Alice Chandler. I'm doing, so like Mel sort of distinguished that her PhD was fine art practice based, whereas mine is a research based. So while I am an artist, I'm not actually using my artist practice to do this research. So I'm at the University of Leeds in the School of Performance and Cultural Industries. And it's a collaborative doctoral award with YVAN, and it's funded by White Rose, which is it's a consortium between Leeds, York, and Sheffield universities. Next. Okay, so who am I? I thought this is like a bit existential, but who am I? I'm an artist, I'm a researcher, I'm a jewellery maker, and formerly I worked at Sunnybank Mills in Leeds, which is like a arts and heritage organisation, and I worked as part of a small team doing sort of programming, curating, marketing, all sorts of stuff that goes into running an art space. I left that to start my PhD, but I still have a studio there, so I'm kind of still connected, which is nice. As Mel said, like many artists and people working in the cultural industries, yeah, I wear multiple hats. So self-employed and funded PhD researcher and all sorts of melting pots going on. I've included images here just of some past work of mine at an exhibition called Privet that was at a space called Threshold in Leeds last year, and a picture of the Yorkshire Sculpture Network, which was an online thing through the pandemic in 2020. So this is all the working title of my research, so researching artist networks in Yorkshire and Humber, determining value, impact and sustainability. Though I just sort of touch on some of the sort of themes, I guess, that are like kind of prevalent within the research. So you've got professional and career development, artist livelihoods and support, Yorkshire and Humber policy impacts, social capital and inequalities in the cultural sector, cultural value and cultural labour, and collaboration with visual arts organisations. So there's sort of like a big sort of range of themes that are going into how I'm conducting this research. Next slide. Yeah, so this is sort of a selection of the key research questions I'm intending to focus on. These change all the time, and I stare at my computer even today. I'm just like, oh, I don't know what value means anymore. Like, just value is the worst thing to think about anyway. Yeah, so I'm interested in how artists define their own networks and the career impacts that come from those networks. I'm interested in understanding the types of value, which I'm starting to really regret that now, but which might be embedded within their networks. Yeah, looking at the different types of networks that exist for artists, thinking about the barriers to the sustainability of artist networks, and then kind of the last thing, which when we get to the methodology slide, I'll talk about this a bit more, but what strategies can be used to enhance the value, impact and sustainability of these networks. And I included a picture of this quilt that I made when I was on the Tech Leeds Artist Associate Programme in 2019, and the quilt path, the quilt pattern, the name of it is Drunkard's Path, which I thought was kind of like a fairly fitting metaphor for doing a PhD. Not that I'm drunk all the time doing it, but that it's like lots of twists and turns, and sometimes you haven't got a clue what's going on. So yeah, next slide. So, God, that's really dark, isn't it? Anyway. So yeah, how am I planning to like address these research questions? The research is like pretty sociological. Networks by nature are like really complex things. I think when we're thinking about things like value, these things aren't like one-dimensional when they're in the arts. So I think that I kind of need to take like a qualitative action research approach that can really work through different cycles of planning, acting, observing, reflecting, but starting with quite a lot of desk-based research, then focus groups, interviews, network mapping, readdressing this as it goes on, and then I'm planning to work with YVAN and the artists in YVAN's programme to conduct some action research based on the data that is gathered in the sort of first phase of gathering the data for the research. So yeah, that's the plan at the minute. So yeah, it's kind of weird, as Mel said, to be doing a presentation. You think, oh, I don't know, kind of want to like mythologize the PhD, because in the first year it feels like you do absolutely nothing, but you do loads. But it's kind of hard to, you don't really have anything to present because you've not really started to collect data yet. You're just going towards that. So this is sort of what has happened over my first year. So yeah, loads of reading and research question development, and this just happens all the time. Getting to know YVAN, getting to know the university, and my supervisors who actually aren't here, I feel like an idiot because I should have told them to come. Yeah, I've been on research trips to Sheffield, Hull and Scarborough, which have been like scoping trips, meeting people, just sort of sussing out the lay of the land. Attending White Rose events with all the cohort of researchers that are funded by White Rose. Researcher training is like a massive thing, so think like attending courses on how to do interviews and how to write a lit review, but the whole kind of process of it is researcher training, but there's a lot of stuff you do like that. I've conducted focus groups with a range of artists from across the region, so that was sort of like really I guess really gathering sort of preliminary data to gain a broad overview of what artists in the region thought about artist networks. What did they even, what did they even relate artist networks to? Did they consider themselves to be part of artist networks? And from those initial focus groups, some key sort of themes have started to come out around like education, social media, studios and place and isolation and mental health. All of these things sort of wrapped up into how artists talk about how they experience artist networks, which has been really interesting. For the past 3 months, I've been doing a professional development scheme with the Centre for Cultural Value, which is based at the University of Leeds. So this has been like, they run a funding programme called Collaborate, which is pairing arts organisations with academic researchers to conduct a piece of research, which is led by the cultural sector. So I've been conducting like an analysis on that inaugural round of the application processes for that. So I've read through a lot of applications and I've conducted interviews with successful and unsuccessful applicants, and yeah, pulled together a report, an internal report for the CCV to help them run the next round, which is opening soon. Yeah. Yeah, and finally, kind of most importantly, I have passed my first year transfer, which kind of every university does it differently, but it's like a big thing that happens at the end of first year that takes you from being a provisional PhD researcher to like a fully fledged PhD researcher, which means you can carry on getting funded to do the research and they think it's going to be a project. But it sort of consists of like a big 15,000 word like submission of a project proposal and then like a mini viva. It's like mine was online, it was a grilling, it was an experience, but it was good. It was really useful. So yeah, what's next? I thought I'd include a picture of my clean jeweler's bench here, just because it rarely looks like this and it's sort of a bit of a ready for action metaphor. But yeah, I'm now preparing for this year of data collection, in starting to interview artists across the region, focus groups, working with YVAN and the research working group. I'm going to be teaching first year undergraduates, which is really funny. No, it'll be great. It's understanding the global creative industries, and I think it'll be really fun. Actually, it's a really fun module. But so that's going to be good. And then through White Rose, you get funded to do specific projects which all form part of this researcher training. So one of those is it's called internationalization. So I've been putting together a proposal potentially to go to Australia. I've not told you about this actually, but to potentially to go to Australia to meet with some academics over there. And the other thing that you do is a researcher employability project where you go for 1 to 3 months to work like in an organization completely separate to your research. It's like separate to your PhD project, and I'm quite interested in policy, so maybe reaching out to somewhere like DCMS or Arts Council. I don't know yet, but that's sort of something that will happen this year.